Welcome students to another use of Scratch. In this case we will be working on the flowering plant life cycle. Here as you see we'll have to have you log in. I have one made so you can see the steps. This will be the finished product. You will not be finishing the product today. We will be starting to learn new skills concerning multiple costumes and how to play them. As you can see, we have our flowering plant starting as a seed and roots start to form. From the roots we start to see the stem and leaves, the flower bud, the flower starting to emerge from the flower bud, the flower, the bee pollinates the flower, and the next steps being the form of the seed pod. Here we have the seed pod being formed and the seeds being created and released to continue the life cycle of the flowering plant. Let's look inside. As you can see, we have one backdrop, or if I click the stage, we have a backdrop that's nothing and a backdrop that is drawn. As you can see, we have 4 sprites that have been drawn. One is the cloud, one is the sun, and we made the bee. As you can see, we can name our sprites up here. If not, we will just have generic names such as sprite 1, 2, and so on. If you look at the flowering plant, you'll notice that we have multiple costumes. In this case, 54 costumes. You don't need to make 54 costumes. All I want you to do is be able to show stages in the life cycle of a flowering plant. You can use as many as you want or as few as long as you can show the stages. I'm going to show you how to start this up. This will not be finished this class. Like I said before, this is only for us to reach halfway. We'll be spending a couple classes on the stages of a flowering plant. In this case, you'll be learning about costumes and how to add to show changes over time. You will go to Scratch and you will create something new. We will not need the cat scratch sprite, but you will need a background. You can draw it yourself or you can pick from something that's already been made. We have the blue sky that shows dirt. We have a forest over here and so on. Find something that makes sense to you. Now remember, the backdrop you pick, you can modify. Now we will need to have dirt. You can either draw it in using a brown rectangle and make it big enough for us to see our seed and our roots. Now do not create any drawings of the seed in the backdrop. The backdrop is going to be one image. But when you create your sprite, this will have all the changes with the multiple costumes. You'll start off with a seed. As you can tell, it's the same color as our ground, so you will probably have to change it to something a little bit lighter. Now some seeds are perfect ovals. Others tend to have a more different shape. Using the node tool here, and we can change it to a smaller size. Now normally we have it right on the center, but in this case I'd like it to be just a little bit lower, and then you can move the rest of it down in here. Now you are not going to be drawing the seed over and over and over again. It will take forever for you to do it like the artists of old. What you will do is you will double click with two fingers on the trackpad or right click on the costume and hit duplicate. You are now going to be in a second costume that you can modify. In this case, add a few more roots. I'm going to duplicate it again and add to the roots, making it look like it's growing. Each time I add changes, there'll only be a few changes. Now at this stage, I think I'm going to start to have my stems start to appear. So I'll pick the color green, make it a little darker. I'll make it a rectangle without any line going around it. And place it on. Now I can tell for sure that this is way too big, so I'm going to change its size just a little bit and make it appear like it's starting to come out of the ground. Now just take that image and duplicate it again. Take the stem and have it grow a little bit. Duplicate it again. A little more. As you can see, we're showing changes over time. Now I'm probably going to put in some leaves that are going to start to form. This one I'm going to use the node tool and I'm going to pick this corner and I'm going to make it pointed. I'm then going to change its size, make it a little smaller. I'm going to put one over here. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it. And know what? I'm going to flip it. I could use this just to rotate it around. But you can also use the flip feature. Now I would say that this is a little too big for what I want. It's like bang, there it is. So let's make them a little smaller. And then we can take this window. Oh, it looks like I made a mistake. I was not working on the last frame. Well, I'll move this frame up. Lower this down. That looks good. Now I'm on the last frame. I will duplicate. And being that I'm on this frame, I will make it grow. And I'll make the seeds appear to grow too. Now, if by chance it's very hard for you to manipulate, you can always use the magnify to zoom in. In this case, I think I'll move this one up just a little bit. I will duplicate this one, make the stem grow a little bit more. And keep on duplicating. Each time, adding slight changes to the plant. Now, as you can see, I'm already up to 14 costumes. So it's really not that hard to end up with a lot of costumes. Now in this case, I'm going to start to have the flower bud start to form. I will give it a black outline. Oops, sorry, undo that. I'm going to move this one over here. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to duplicate it again. And I'm going to make this grow. Inside our flower bud, the flower starts to form. starts off as a small opening. I'm going to make this a red flower. I got to remember to use the arrow to move it. Duplicate. Make it a little bit bigger. Duplicate. And so on. Now remember, your backdrop is your backdrop. The changes to your sprite, in this case we'll call this sprite the flowering plant, is where you're going to have your different costumes. Now if I go to the coding, I have 22 costumes, and what I will do is I will create an event where I click the green button. For my looks, I will start with my first costume. As you can see, all the costumes are numbered. I'll call this one costume 1. Now being that I have 22 costumes, I'm going to have my flower repeat 20 times. And what it'll do for 20 times is it will wait 1 second, and then it will show the next costume. So by repeating 20 times, I should have every stage show. And we are done. Okay, this is the beginning of the flowering plant model making. I wish you luck and good luck.